This meeting is being live streamed. I got it. Let me push that button. There we go. Sanford, Gary, Doug, Tim. That's Tim Cunningham and Tim IHP. Thank you all for joining us. I think I got everyone. All right. Thanks to Daryl who arranged this meeting, and he is sick, so he's not with us in person. He is here on the Zoom, and we want to thank him. And we want to thank Mike Douglas.
Who's he?
That's a strange person here, and he is our section manager.
And no, I'm not wearing my badge today. Thank you very much. If you don't know me by now, we got a big problem.
Well, we got a big problem.
Leave it to Larry to come up with that one.
We do know you. Well,
Good one, Randy. Good one.
All right, we want to ask all of you to join in to the emergency coordinators meeting, which happens Monday at 7:30 on NI4CE, and say hi. And then Saturday at 7:30, we have one following the Florida Phone Network.
3.940.
That's right.
Lower sideband.
Guess I better get with the program.
And I'm
here.
gonna put another one in here if I can.
What?
Immediately after my net, there is what is called the South Florida net, but they are incorporating West Central into it. We need to check into that net, folks. The more they hear
Yes.
the more they're gonna know you in a time of emergency. Check in enough for them to recognize who you are.
All
That's
right.
daily, Randy. That's not just on
That's
Saturday. Monday through Saturday.
Monday through Saturday.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, right.
7:45 is the official starting time. So
all
they
right.
call by county alphabetically. When they holler for your county, check in.
All right, thank you. And I've been trying to check into the SARnet, and they won't give me authorization, and my AC says that's worthless, and they won't send a letter for me, so I'm not checking in on SARnet. All right, and the Southern Florida ARES net is also on here at 7:45, so get that. It's already on the agenda. Thank you very much. Discussion of the simulated emergency test. Before I do that, I have one other piece of old business. The West Central Florida Communication Plan was last updated in March of 2011. Since then, personally, I know Polk County now has 4 repeaters. It has 8 simplex frequencies. We have FDARN in Polk County and Unwelcome, and we have other things. And so what I want to do is update it. I've sent all the ECs a list of what we have for them. And so I just want to get it all updated. I'm going to revise the old plan. It's got things in there that were supposed to be developed in 2012 and never did get developed. And so I'm going to be rewriting it and working it over and seeing what I can get. I'm also going to be looking at all of the different your websites and the different county and state websites and other places, and just see what they look like and what the best information. Do you have a question?
I have a comment.
No, I wondered if somebody, who do you think had a question?
Oh, there, I'm sorry. I thought you were looking at me.
That's not a question. That's from Daryl.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
statement, that's a chat. So what, go
I
ahead.
have a comp plan for the section dated 2015.
Oh, well, great.
I will get a copy.
Send it to me. Yeah, it's gotta be better than the 2011.
It's still woefully out of date.
Yeah. So I'm gonna, like I said, thank you. I will go ahead and look all that stuff up. We're gonna talk a little bit now about the set that we just had. I thought was very exciting. I enjoyed it. Being one of the northern counties, we didn't get involved as much as I was hoping, and that's because they ran out of time. They were having so much fun running the emergency down in the southern counties. No, that's not fun. But they were very busy doing that. And so we are going to be looking at that. So Chuck, you want to talk about that? He wrote this really nice, I don't have enough of them for everyone.
I have a soft copy if you like.
Oh, can we do that, Daryl?
I might just go to a couple of things. and-
I think we can.
That production. Okay.
We can do share screen. So Daryl, can I host a share screen or can you host a share screen?
He is not on that stick, but.
Yes, you can share the screen. Go ahead.
All right, which one is it?
It's
High and
the one
dry
that's
too?
Spelled summary with a capital S, capital U.
Okay, got it.
Should only be 4 pages. It's what I sent you
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
All righty. And, all right, let's just run. Now on mine, it's just F5. F5? No, not doing it here. File,
Come here playing the games.
No,
no.
he's doing it.
Where's play?
These WCF here.
I don't think
On the
they,
board up there.
oh, it is?
All right,
WCF 01.
Oh, I see it.
Not Hardee County. Okay.
whose
Yeah, WCF
computer?
is the workflow manager. I thought for all the counties.
Mike,
Yes.
how do you hit play for PowerPoint?
Oh, boy, you got.
Slideshow, I got it. I think I got it.
Yeah.
Slideshow,
Slideshow, start from beginning.
there?
No,
No,
go slide.
go ahead.
While we're waiting for this, I wanted to mention something that she kind of skipped by, old business. I would like to see an EC or EC designate from each county log in on the EagleNet, the ARES section of the EagleNet every Monday night, if possible, somebody to log in, so we know that you're listening. And same thing with Saturday after the Florida phone traffic net on 3940 kilohertz. It'd be great to have somebody key in on that as well.
Mike, correction, I don't think you mean the EagleNet, you mean the West Central Florida ARES.
Right, on the
On
NI4C,
the
correct.
Yeah, EagleNet's.
Right.
Okay.
All
So,
we have, Mike, is in Minnesota, it's the RNet on Monday nights at the same time.
Yeah.
So, and I'm usually net control, so whether or not I can get done in time, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
Well, understood.
And then whoever, are you the net control? on HL? Who's net control?
I am.
Randy.
Randy,
Yeah, because well, somebody usually call it is, I can hardly hear. Randy, I hear you fine. Somebody else is net control on the HL. On 3940.
No, I am. I'm
Either him or Doug.
Now, Doug will be on the third Saturday, Doug takes it, and I have a problem with Doug.
All right,
Number
maybe
of
that's just the
problems.
third Saturday, my luck
Here
getting
you go.
checked, you know. Usually I'm not free on Saturday.
No.
That's the only comment.
okay.
I tried checking, we should be able to.
Well, you need an antenna like ours at the DOC,
My wife are really fine.
80, 40, 20, dipole, 20 feet off the ground. S9 signals on the whole state.
All right, I had my piece for the moment.
All righty, well, we'll
Okay.
give it back to Chuck.
All right, just a little recap here. For the communications exercise. From back last year, when we did the high and dry exercise #1, and it was really centered on the agricultural response. And so we were using that as, we needed to do one for our agricultural response team. We said, okay, well, we'll expand it on into use NI4CE and have ARES support our operations, because we didn't have enough controllers to be able to do what we needed to do. So on that, it says during the previous operational period, which we called last year an operational period. So we were sort of simulating like the 2 days were actually right up against each other. So we had Charlie's Creek up here in Hardee County prompted the evacuation of and the feeding of stranded livestock. There was a resource staging area set up at the Turner Center, which that's where the state animal response team is located for their regional response group. So that would have been there for ESF 17. We had Manatee County identify some drop points so people could donate materials, hay, feed, stuff like this, in a safe place where we could also have trucks coming in and out and all that other, so they found us a good spot there at the Manatee, or at the Manatee Fairgrounds. And then the next, this high and dry 2 was, it says the size and the scope of the incident is rapidly growing. The governor declared a state of emergency that placed all 67 counties on alert. And that was something that we went back, and all of these kind of tie back into things. I talked with Doug about some of the stuff. Hey, when the water's up here, how long does it take whenever it's going to hit DeSoto County? About 24 hours. You're going to see it. So we also had the real life incident where the governor declared a state of emergency for all 67 counties on alert with the Piney Point. And so we know about that one a year ago. And where we were put on alert from our agricultural response group to maybe have to evacuate animals around that area because it's all mixed use agriculture. So ARES has been tasked to establish a two-way radio communication network to support, coordinate, and document volunteer activities. So it's so important that volunteer activities have a communications network besides cell phones, because even if the cell phones are working, they get clogged up. It's not the way that you can effectively communicate information back and forth. You need a radio communication system. Right now here, the fire department, law enforcement, they're all working on a two-way radio communication system. Even if they've got a digital unit in their car and cell phones, the most effective, fastest way to be able to communicate information to an entire group is going to be by two-way radio. So that's where we asked ARES to be able to set up a network to support, coordinate, and document that volunteer activity. NI4CE repeater system was utilized for the command staff, and then there were subnets set up, and I'm going to let Steve talk about some of that. We also, something that we didn't do in the first exercise, because the system has matured more, is we took the NXDN system, that digital system that's part of West Central Florida's group, that same one that handles the NI4CE, has that digital network. Well, the footprint of that fits perfectly for the ag response. So we moved our ag response over to that just to get another net over there, get it out of the way. Purposely, though, there were some things done to make it so that we wound up with a bottleneck on the command channel. We would try not to do those, but that's what happens. And I mentioned it on a Zoom meeting we had the other night to the Manatee folks. I had a supervisor back years ago that we were riding on a fire that had started along the railroad tracks down Charlotte County and was going towards the way station there at I-75. It was in Malaluka, and it was a really good going fire. So you had initial response units, you had requests for backup coming through, basically what we were doing with the state EOC. You were trying to coordinate everybody going there. The radio channel was just solid traffic. A while into the incident, all of a sudden everything quieted. And he goes, all right, we're fighting fire now. That was his way of being able to say, now we've stopped with the organizational process. Subnets, they started putting people on tactical channels and everything. Now we're fighting fire. We had a great discussion about that, and it's always stuck with me. Whenever I listen to a radio network, and you know that it's going to be like that at first. It's going to be that log jam. And then you hear it and it quiets down. We're fighting fire now. So that's kind of our little key word that we use. We had Skywarn on there, which on the after action, we were looking at it and saying we could have really done the Skywarn over onto a subnet with NXDN, because we had lots of room over there. We weren't using it underutilized, overutilized. That was definitely two wide area networks, what was underutilized, what was overutilized.
Chuck,
Yes.
the NXDN will always be that way because it has very limited number of people that have that capability.
Have that capability.
Because it's expensive radios. You can't buy a $35 bong and get on it.
And the great thing is that people can't do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's, for us, in the ag side of it, we said, this is a great thing. Doug, did they bring you one of those radios?
They brought one to DeSoto County and set it up to somebody who's participating in talent skills.
Oh, okay,
I didn't never seen it.
okay, all right.
I still gotta get mine.
Yeah, the idea was, and this was one of the big promotions of this drill, is everybody did a lot of pre-work. And this putting two counties together, your neighboring county working together, it was really probably, if we never even wound up doing the drill, there was so much good stuff that was done ahead of time, getting ready, because we didn't spill the beans on what was going to happen, which that's real life. So we had the Catholic Charities. They're based out of Venice, but they cover missions in DeSoto County, Manatee County, Sarasota, all the way down to Naples. And that group of hams that works with them, they simulated having trucks that they were riding with and moving stuff from All Faith Food Bank and going over to Arcadia to the two locations they've got over there. So that was another group. I said before, our ag recovery group, we were functional. So there were two groups and 5 divisions. Divisions are geographic and groups are functional. And we should have 5 to 7 is our span of control that we want in ICS. So we were maxed at 7. But again, we were able to take one of those and slide them off into a subnet. Actually, 2 of them. Both groups got slid into subnets. We're trying to figure out, and this is one of the interesting things that came out with it. We initially wanted to be able to follow these trucks as they went from Venice to go and get food at the food bank in Sarasota, and then be able to take it to Arcadia. So we assigned them to what's called Redcom, which is our big expanded radio group that's off-site, just right next door to the Emergency Operations Center of the MAC. They were assigned into there so that we had connection with them. They weren't just lost and on their own. We could reach out and touch them anytime we needed to. The idea was if we had moved along quicker, but there were some of these stumbling blocks built into it. If we'd have moved along quicker, they were actually going to go ahead and start getting their materials from Highlands County. They were going to come across there. One of the trucks was going to be diverted back to that. And I'll talk about that in a minute, what we had going. So we would have looked at more branches and subnets and having crossing the lines and basically flight following these people as they moved along. But again, we weren't fighting fire yet. When we got to the end of this thing, we were still in the fire. So on the divisions, Highlands County and Hardee County were Division A, just like they were in the first exercise. So y'all staffed the EOC over there? Okay, so it was staffed. You served as the division control station for the area command. So rather than Hardee trying to be here and be on the main command net, they just talked with their partner back and forth. So this was a more efficient utilization of personnel. It would allow you that each operational period, you could swap that mission back and forth so that you, hey, and because I've seen it before, you come in as a incident management team, and I saw it in this room back years ago. They were about 36 to 48 hours post-storm. Come in here and it's like, oh, I finally got the walking zombies that I got a chance to see here, because everybody's hitting the wall right about that time. If you said, no, your partner county has got it covered today, you need one less position to have here in this radio room, that could be a big deal for you, is to have that coverage. So they were going to staff, and they staffed it, but we never got it into play. It was in the scenario for Florida DEM, Department of Emergency Management, and FEMA was going to start setting up a resource staging area at the fairgrounds in Highlands County. So that was already in their scenario. They were building that in as far as their people that they need. And they also supplied ride-along radio operators with some Cattlemen's Association personnel that came over to work in Highlands and Hardee County, so they had to get a communications net with them. And this is actually the whole reason why our SARG group, Sarasota Ag Recovery Group, got started over in Sarasota. We sent people to DeSoto County after Charlie, and they just disappeared with no communication. Yes, sir.
I'm gonna insert something here. I sat down with my EOC manager
Mhm.
and talked to her about this thing with the resource pod, because I wanted to know, how would you handle that?
Yes.
I started talking about it and saying, we're going to set up a resource pod at the fairgrounds and, and she's looking at me with this perplexed look, and she finally interrupted me and she said, does the fairgrounds know you're going to do this? And I had to explain to her, this is a drill. This is a drill.
Yes, yes. And I explained something the other night too on that Zoom meeting to folks, is whenever I was writing this scenario, and I've done before, is there's two types of these scenarios that you build. One of them is a specific task that's a real thing. For instance, we did one for the power plant in Manatee County up there by Parrish. So it involved that power plant, a major emergency that was going on there. We had another one, it was a cruise ship that had a major emergency on it. It was going into Fort Manatee. And so, okay, partners in Hillsborough, everybody that's in Manatee, Minnesota, Region 6, everything's got to be put together. This one was what I refer to as, it's just transportation. It's the party bus. The party was us just getting together and having something to exercise with. Okay, so we all get on the party bus and it takes us, it's not anything that, well, maybe we would never set up a staging area there, but it gave up something for you to work with. Okay. And as we talked about it too, I said, every now and then you got to pull over, throw a few people out, and tell them to get an Uber to go the rest of the way. Division B was in, the first one was already set up. Division B served as a control station out of Manatee County. They were partnered with Sarasota County. And they've been doing a tremendous amount of work in the last year, just getting all this stuff working together. They established a mobile command post and they really set it up. They didn't move it, but they set it up. Simulating they were going to be at their fairgrounds. They staffed the simulated drop points for large animal feed supplies, created a staging area for potential evacuation of Piney Point. I couldn't help but bring that one back in there. That made everybody go, oh, okay. And they replaced SARG members at the drop point in Nyack City. We have some areas for drop points and also covering one of the points of refuge for people flooding along the Nyack River and the Hidden River area that are farmers and ranchers that are ham radio operators will cover that immediately. But then we look for areas to come and backfill. Sarasota staff, their RedCom, is what they call it. They're at the Red Cross building right next to the EOC. They supported communications with the Catholic Charities missions to transport commodities. They staffed the Red Cross shelter in Northport. We simulated that, and the comfort station out in Omak. Division C, that was the partners between Charlotte County and DeSoto County. Charlotte County and DeSoto County, even though we had a tornado that came up in DeSoto County, we never got past that initial part of it, of basically making it part of the tour bus. Hey, it just gave us missions to be able to respond to. Down the road, it was written in there after that initial response of having Charlotte simulate supporting resource numbers, basically enough operators. So Doug would say, this is how many operators I need. But you said, explain to me again, as far as the NXDN, you had somebody at the EOC with it?
No, that's somebody's personal house.
Oh, okay, okay. So, but they had it and they could talk.
Whoever had the radio was had it in their possession and went to one of our team members' house there inside.
Okay. Okay, so that made it so that that connection between Charlotte and DeSoto was there. So they could have requested that borderline to borderline mutual aid very quickly. So they served as, Charlotte County served as the Division Control Station. They staffed their EOC, and they supported DeSoto County with the NXDN radio and the potential that they were going to need if they needed more people into the county. Pinellas was Division D along with Hillsborough. So they served, Pinellas served as the Division Control Station. Hillsborough that day was tied up on 2 other events for real life, okay? And that's, could be real life, because we were supposed to have had this storm that came in. DeSoto County got hit with a tornado. We hadn't had the flooding up there, but those other events could have been who knows what. So could have been the Alafia River that was flooding, okay? Could have been a real event for what we had showed as far as our weather pattern. So Hillsborough provided backup resources for them, and Pinellas just had lots of resources ready to go. Division E, which is Polk County, served as the Division Control Station for the Polk and Pasco. And then they provided the staffing at the EOC and backup. We originally had planned it so that Highlands and Hardee County would receive their initial requests for backup would come from Polk and Pasco. Pinellas and Hillsborough would back up Manatee and Sarasota. Just seems like natural fits in there. And then Charlotte, of course, is tied in with DeSoto as a partner. So I'm going to let Steve go through the after action plan now, and then we can open it up for discussion from each one of the particular divisions on that.
Did you have any copies of this that these folks, I'm sorry, that these folks can look at, or maybe we put it on the TV or something?
Can we put it up on the TV?
I don't know.
I don't know how to do that.
Gary Wells, are you online with us?
You showed that. Let's check.
I hope we didn't knock him out when we brought him.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. He's online.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to talk a lot about Division B, which was the combination of Manatee and Sarasota. So Gary, please chime in and help me out at your discretion.
Now, do you have documents? We can put them up here.
It's just this.
It's the same.
Yeah, it's the
thing.
same
Okay.
exact thing. Yeah.
Does that machine work? That copier behind you?
Oh, I don't know.
So I guess we're not on camera, right? So I can move around. Hey, y'all. I'm Steve Park. I'm the emergency coordinator for Manatee County.
You are on camera, actually.
Oh, am I
You're
on camera?
actually. Yes, you
How's that?
are.
How's that, Daryl? Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. We can see you now.
Okay, thanks. I'm Steve Park. I'm the emergency coordinator for Manatee County, ARES RACES, and I've had the pleasure of working with Chuck on the original Operation High and Dry Day 1. Was part of the planning team along with Randy and a few others, and we have. We did a lot of planning in advance for this one as well, and it expanded. So what Chuck's asked me to do is to prepare from all of us collectively what we'll call an after action review summary. Okay, so I know, and I've gotten a lot of good feedback from different people. Randy sent me a bunch of stuff. I've gotten some stuff from David Pinellas. Good feedback from Chuck, of course. What I'd like to do is whatever you did after the event, whether it was just you individually or your observations, we did a hot wash. Sanford did a live hot wash over the air. Collect those things and get them to Chuck in writing somehow so that we can flow them up. We've already gotten a lot of good inputs, but I'm looking for 4 things in particular, either from your hot wash or your after action review. And what I thought I'd do today is just go through what we did in Manatee and Sarasota County and give you some ideas of what we're looking for. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to write them on this whiteboard. Sorry, I'm going to leave the camera. But those of you that don't have the benefit of being able to see all this, we, this was a multi-agency, and as Chuck said, a party bus. I like to think of it as what FEMA would call an expanding incident, right? There's lots of things going on over a wide area now. So we're trying to capture all those things. I don't know what was going on in Pasco County or what was going on in DeSoto County, right? And so we're trying to capture four things. First of all, always, what was your participation? If you could just summarize, you know, and I'll show you an example of that in a minute. But number one, what was your participation from your individual divisions? So 2 counties together, what were your total check-ins maybe, or something like that? I'll talk about that a little bit. Secondly, what are your likes, concerns, and suggestions? So likes, concerns, suggestions, that's the classic after action review. What worked, what didn't work, and what could we have done better? Maybe is a better way of saying that, right? Classic after action or hot wash kind of questions. Then after that, if you would, help us with a little salesmanship, because we're going forward to our partners and our served agencies very soon. The first one is next week, in fact. So whatever we can get quickly would help. But Chuck's already talked about the State Agricultural Response Team, the Catholic Charities Disaster Amateur Radio Network, the Florida Agricultural Extension Service, search with a C, obviously, the American Red Cross. Redcom is the center for the American Red Cross in Sarasota and for 10 counties. So Red Cross is a big player, and of course all our emergency management agencies, mine included. So anything you can do to provide photos. Randy sent some nice pictures in, thank you very much, and logos. If you are permitted to use a logo, please include that, or send it to Chuck, or send it to me, because we want to show that this was truly a multi-agency expanding incident. Okay. So I'll just say photos and logos. Those 4 things, and I think mostly with your comments, and don't worry about formatting. If you just want to send a text email, anything like that, I'll take care of the formatting. And my hope is that I can take comments from maybe Larry observed something and Jimmy observed something, and they're the same thing. So I'll do the assimilation kind of stuff, wordsmithing, and then we'll get back together and kind of review the draft virtually, either a Zoom meeting or just by email or something. Okay. So with that, what I wanted to do was go through actually what we did in Division B. And very quickly, I guess we don't have copies, but there's a slide that looks like this, right? It just says what were our participation requirements. This is a summary of what our resource nets, and we ran individual resource nets, Sarasota and Manatee, enrolled their volunteers and went through, we go through what we call a radio operator availability report, or ROAR, where we list volunteers. And then when an incident occurs, if people aren't available, you can't give them assignments, but you can't, you also can't self-deploy. So they check into the resource and information net, we do a ROAR, and then we give them assignments. Out of that comes a thing like, well, we had in Manatee, we had 12 check-ins. This is a big event. We didn't get a lot of, hey, mister, I'm here to help kind of check-ins. We got qualified ARES radio operators checking in. Well, we had 12, we had no visitors. We ran the net for 2 hours and 30 minutes, right? That's our summary. In Sarasota, they had 8 check-ins, ran for 2 hours and 35 minutes. So we had a total of 20 check-ins. We had 20 resources available over 2 hours and 30 minutes, roughly. We handled, so we had tasking in our division for Manatee County Emergency Management. One of our responsibilities is to handle situational awareness. And situational awareness comes a lot from our forward eyes or the SERPs, okay? So we handled 12 priority messages on IC-213s. 8 of those were sent via WinLink. And by the way, 6 of those 12 were Skywarn reports. There was a lot of Skywarn going on. And so we sent Skywarn reports via WinLink. And out of those 20 check-ins, we actually got 10 IC-214s back after after the event. So we focus on, in both counties, we focus very much on the use of 213s and 214s. So that's the kind of summary stuff I'm looking for. Just anything you can scratch down would be greatly appreciated. After that, I put together a one-page summary, and I know it's for reading, not for projecting, so I won't bore you with it. I'm just going to talk to it. And it's 4 topics. First of all, what are the capabilities that you're trying to highlight in your particular county? The way we try to design drills using a master scenario exercise list is to identify the capabilities that we'd like to exercise or demonstrate. NXDN is a good example of that, right? And then how did we do? So I'll tell you that in Manatee and Sarasota County, what we're trying to do is there's certain capabilities might be, oh gee, can I send traffic on an IC-213 or something like that? We're pretty much mature and feeling pretty good about that. So our capability highlights were, can we enlist radio operators using a resource net and a radio operator availability report? Yes, we demonstrated that, right? And that comes with type and kind information when you're designating what kind. Do I have a radio operator? Do I have an assistant emergency coordinator or supervisor position? What do I have? What kind of skills do I have? Am I wind link capable? We demonstrated the deployment of what we call the Incident Communications Center, the trailer that went to the drop point and deployed a portable repeater. So from Piney Point, we learned we're out in the middle of nowhere. We're halfway between Parrish, which is nowhere, and Sun City, which is almost nowhere. And we deployed a portable 2-meter repeater. Okay, so we did that. We wanted to show mutual aid collaboration between the 2 counties. That was a big thing. It was easy. Gary and I have done this a lot over the last year, but to demonstrate Division B by collaborating with Sarasota and Manatee. And then finally, the other one that came up was, we've got this long IC-205, right? We got all kinds of radio resources and stuff. And lo and behold, the day of the exercise, this was not a planned inject. Our Bradenton repeater failed. And the net control operators, multiple operators, immediately just switched over to an alternate repeater. That one didn't work so well. They went back to the main repeater and operated simplex. And we used simplex with relay stations for the entire 2 hours and 30 minutes. That was a huge demonstration that we didn't plan on. Yeah, Chuck.
Just one thing too, mentioned about the day before, the VHF side of NI4C.
Oh yeah, right.
And they fingerprinted the doorknob. I was not in there. This is not part of the.
We were all blaming you anyway. You took the big stick down on us.
Yeah.
So we knew that in advance, right? Ahead of time, we were able to plan for that. But the good example of a capability, right? It's the flexibility that we have with this spectrum of tactical channels at our disposal.
There were some people though that have never used the UHF side of big stick and never had it put in their radio. And so they had to do some scrambling. So it wound up being one of those real life. Came back in and you found something that you needed to change.
So these are specific incidents just for Division B, but if you had other things and you want to talk about them, my intent was to have that conversation. So if you got things, just speak up. You won't hurt my feelings, for sure. So then with my staff, Gary with his staff, and then collectively, the meeting you were in on Zoom was a joint Manatee Sarasota after action review meeting we held last week on Zoom. And we had a real good turnout. We had a whole bunch of people, just like I'm asking you right now, just sending me emails with, hey, this really sucked and this worked well. And this, I was surprised by this. Damn, I should know how to program my radio from the front panel. You know, that stuff you hear all the time, right? That continuously flows up from, I'll say, the new people. Okay, there's always that. It's great learning. It's great learning. You can tell them all day long, but until they have to change channels and they can't get into the repeater and they're scratching their head going, I paid a lot of money for this radio. Why can't I talk to Larry on the repeater? Well, it's because they had the wrong PL tone or something simple like that. So a lot of good learning went on, but at a higher level now, we're raising this up. What worked well? We both found in both counties that having a backup net control operator is essential, right? That was an aha moment for our net manager. We always have one, never needed them. All of a sudden, we got a repeater down, stuff's happening. Somebody's got to take a bio break, whatever it is, more than 2 hours in the seat, you gotta have a backup.
Somebody had to be at a ham fest that day.
Stuff happens, right? My batteries went dead, whatever it is. So backup net control operator, it turned out to be essential. That was an aha moment. Realistic flooding reports from a command net. This was our first time to ever operate with a command net. Sanford and NI4CE and that whole thing. I'm calling that a command net for lack of a better term, but that's the generic term. So having realistic flooding reports and movement of supplies, multiple things going on, that was new for us. Worked very well. It also demonstrated to our net control operators the importance of breaking out into subnets. We had a subnet, we had a separate repeater set up for the drop point. Oh, now we got to track these resources coming from Sarasota County that are flying through. Right? The other thing that came back loud and clear from a lot of people was the calm, professional, and measured response to all the challenges. I mean, our folks, they could have panicked. They could have said, hell, it's Saturday, I'm going to the park. They didn't. Everybody was calm. They went off, resorted to their simplex modes, used relays. Everything just worked well. And I was really relieved because I was exiled, right? I actually wasn't able to witness any of this going on. So I'm doing this after the fact because I was deployed to Tallahassee. I was the state EOC person for this. And then finally, our AEC of operations, Cecil Fox, KF4CSM, he has developed and trained a lot of people on just a simple spreadsheet for net control logging. But it's arranged so that you know what the resource type is, what their availability is, and then as you give them assignments, you log them in with a time. And that became very, very important with 2 net control operator backup and a net control. Yeah.
So in Pasco, we had a guest. Well, actually, we had several guests in the room, but in the radio room, we had 3 radios: DMR, the Big Stick, and I was partnered with Kevin over there in Polk.
Yeah.
So we had 3 things going on all at the same time.
Right.
We took one of our guests and made them scribe, and they did exactly what you're talking about, except not.
Yeah, you're right.
Excel.
So, and in Sarasota, Gary had everybody in Redcom. So he had 3 nets running at the same point. He had a whiteboard and a scribe.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that scribe, I called a backup net controller, but really that it was that person.
Could have been that person. Correct.
In Manatee, we don't, because of the co-channel interference stuff, and Gary had some co-site descents and things going on. But we use a distributed model. So we're geographically distributed, our net control operators, but using the same spreadsheet did actually 2 things. It allowed you to see who's available. And so we focus on tracking our resources, always knowing where our resources are. Think about, a police dispatcher, for example. You assign somebody to a call and then you don't hear from them. You better go find out if they're okay, right? So we know who's been assigned. When they come back, it's just like any traffic net. I sent one, received one. Okay, I'm ready for my next assignment. So you can look at that at a glance and you can see who's hanging out there and who's ready and who's available. Chuck?
One of the things we do with the agricultural recovery group is we know we might wind up being completely field operation and having a command net over here. Our subnet doesn't have a net controller, it has an ops chief.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So that's where we took and we've identified, we're using Dwayne as his job, and he did it in Drive 1 and 2 as our documentation unit leader. He was off-site from us because we didn't have a actual 4 walls and a roof. So he was able to do that, track it, kind of call him our court reporter. Your Honor, could you read that one back to us? We're trying to find so-and-so. Where was their last entry? We've got somebody that's tracking that all the time.
And there's actually 2, so that's excellent because that's the same thing except in an uncontrolled net as opposed to a controlled net. There's 2 things we're really trying to accomplish here. One is tracking and following our resources. That's why it's called a resource net. The other is when we handle priority and emergency traffic, we have, I'll call it chain of custody responsibility, right? Every traffic net, if you listen to Florida phone traffic, when you check in with traffic, they say, you know, what's the nature of traffic? Well, I got one routine for this, right? That's all. You don't send the traffic there, you go off and you manage it. But you need to have that chain of custody. Where's that message at now? Has it been delivered? Is it in a relay? Is it in hold? Is it in limbo somewhere? So, and then for forensics, you really want to be able to go back and find out where it went. So tracking resources and chain of custody, the essence of a resource net. And so my guys, that lesson learned really came out loud and clear. You could, like I said, you can talk about it all day long, but until your net control operators actually experience it and they go, oh yeah, hell, I get it now. I thought you were just making work for us. So yeah, so that was good. Concerns and corrective actions. We still have a lot of confusion because we're pretty, Manatee County's pretty, we have no infrastructure, let's be honest. You know, we got one repeater, we don't even have a digipeater in Manatee County, right? Much less a WinLink CMS or anything like that. Working on it, but we don't have a lot of infrastructure. Consequently, we're pretty new to the WinLink game. So there's still a lot of confusion about when and how do I use WinLink, right? So we're working through that. Yeah, thank you.
Were you using
I mean, we still
HF
use two
WinLink or
tin
VHF?
cans in the spring here. in
We're
our
actually
county,
using
so.
VHF WinLink, using Packet. Fortunately, Sarasota County has tremendous infrastructure. And so we're using their CMSs, we're using their digipeaters. I also in Parish, I use South Hillsborough. So Bill, W1WAB and the Sun City guys, they serve a good portion of northern Manatee County as well. So yeah, thanks for the question, Larry, because we're doing it and we're doing it pretty well, but we don't have any of our own infrastructure. So to the newer people, I'll say, trying to make that transition from voice messages to priority traffic, which is an IC213, which there's going to be errors. You just really need WinLink or something like that to do it. So that was one of our concerns, and we're already training, and we have WinLink sessions and things. Everybody noticed that there was too much traffic on Man 1. What we call Man 1 is NI4CE. That's Manatee 1 for us. And everybody understood that Sanford had way too much going on. He was multitasking. But that was by design. Okay, so that was by design. Traffic handling skills. We're still sending messages. They're still talking too fast. They're still not using the ITU phonetics. All those same things, right? All those same things. Nothing new. We had a particular, because this was an expanding incident, a lot of things going on. There were messages coming back that were tactical. So I was out of the picture. My agency of operations was the Division B chief, Cecil, and Gary were collaborating. We get something, a tasking from Chuck, and there was confusion about, well, should I write that down? Go tell DeSoto County that there's a road out, that there's a road that's flooded, right? So Cecil's got to carry that. And he actually was confused. Is that a 213? I said, no, that's a tactical message. It's not priority traffic. There's a difference. So we're starting to be more precise about our language around those things. Like there's a difference between activating, mobilizing, and deploying, right? Deploying means you cross county boundaries. Mobilizing means you're given a task after you activate. So just things like that people have questions about. Some of our priority messages didn't use IC213s, and I know that's not an uncommon problem. And then, of course, the repeater went down. So that was the other one, right? So we're taking corrective actions on all these things. Some suggestions. The suggestion, and I heard you say it this morning, Christine, or when we first kicked off, we'd like to have, for all of West Central Florida, we'd like to have what we would call a common electronics operation instruction document. That's a military term. More simply put, it's if you think of an IC217 as an inventory, some of us use a confidential IC217 as a list of what our radio channels are. I have one. I've programmed all the radios in our deployable, in our Go kits with all your frequencies, hopefully, because I've gone to your websites and I've looked to see what's in your 205s or whatever you've published. And then we've got Man 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Sarasota, DeSoto, Hardee, Hillsboro, and then we program those radios if we can. So that was a suggestion because we're looking forward. We've got these, Chuck called it flight following. You called it updating the West Central Florida comms plan. It's all the same content. But that came up really quick because Cecil needed to go to Sarasota, who then needed to talk to Charlotte, and they didn't know what frequencies to collaborate on, right? I know the Pinellas frequencies, I know the Hillsboro frequencies, I know the Sarasota frequencies. I wouldn't know how to call Randy, for example.
He doesn't answer. I wouldn't
Yeah, on
answer
the
it.
telephone.
He doesn't
Yeah, he
answer.
wouldn't. The other thing was, along with that was to have what we call a flight following comms plan. Flight following is a term Chuck and I have been using, but when we had 4 transports in Division B, we had 4 transport vehicles that were crossing county lines and getting out of repeater, right? We should have had like in air traffic control, it would be a flight plan. And when you hand off, you go to this center or to that center or call.
I know what
call
flight
approach.
following actually is.
Yeah. So it's a great model, and we should have something. Doesn't have to be fancy, but we should have something that says, "Oh, you're going from here to here. These are your frequencies, right?" And we will know to have liaisons. And then also we have what's that one frequency in the aircraft band that everybody uses for uncontrolled airports? You know, that one?
121.
Yeah, it's got a name, right? It's got a generic name. Unicom, right? There's one Unicom frequency that everybody should have, because when you get out in the middle of nowhere and you got a flat tire and somebody's trying to find you, they're going to call you on that frequency.
122.6.
In the wildland firefighting, they call the guard channel.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's everybody, you can find someone on that no matter where you go to.
Yeah.
And one of the other things I just wanted to make a note is we had in there, y'all are depending a lot on the main comp plan, which on a big incident, you would have that. But in what we didn't have here, we would have had in day 3, right, we had continued, was we should have had for each division and group a 204.
Right.
At the bottom of the 204, that division group assignment, in there, you've got the resources that are at, and at the bottom of it, it's got what their division group is going to operate on, what the frequency of the day is for that particular division group. So it's got your guard channel or flight following, it's got your command frequency that if you needed that, and it's got what your division is going to work on. It's already pre-designated at the bottom of that 204. So that's where we could have matured into that process and actually had those as part of the incident action plan. And then, hey, I'm going over, I just got a reassignment and I'm headed to Division E for something. I wonder how I can talk to them. Flip right over there. You don't look at 16 different frequencies that they have in the county available to you. It goes today, this is the plan of today. Maybe it would be different than yesterday or what it's going to be tomorrow. That's the plan of today. It's going to work.
And actually, if you've had 300 and 400, you're familiar with the term the planning P, right? Chuck has been orchestrating this using the planning P. Day one was all about planning for day 2. Day 2 had a lot of elements about planning for day 3, like he's talking about. So that's something actually we're going to stress in our higher up after action. Out of that came this, holy cow, we got all these roads blocked and all these people moving and places and things going there, and our operators had no clue where they were. So get maps. I walk in here and I see maps, right? We didn't have any maps. Damn, right? And I'm sorry, I'm not a Google Maps fan. So yeah, get maps, real paper maps. And then finally, on a more personal note, since I was at the state level, and we were doing resource requests, there is an IC 213 RR, which is specifically a resource request, which would solve a lot of the problems that we had. And those problems were, I need 4 hams, Right, well, so what type? You know, radio operators, net controllers, what do you want? You need HF, you need, so type and kind, right? Type and kind, when do you need them? Right? Where do you need them? A lot of times I need them, but I don't know where to send them. Who are they gonna report to, right? And then the all important, what's the resource request number? What's the charge number? How, you know, what's the authorization? Yeah, there's gotta be a number, right? Anybody's ever deployed knows you gotta know, you gotta have your orders and you gotta know what the number is. If you don't have a number, you can't go.
One of the things that I noted in my notes here, after the fact, actually several days after the event, I realized we had requested 4 additional personnel.
Yeah,
I never did anything with them at all. I never signed them in. I never let the state know they're here. Nothing.
well, officially it never showed up. You requested them,
Well,
but that was for planning for the next day.
okay, I never got anything that said that though, that they didn't show up. So I was left thinking at that point, as far as the state knows, these guys are dead somewhere because I never reported anything.
No, that's not true. So let's talk through that. That's what this after action's about, right? There were 3 requests that I got from Division A at the state level. I'm sorry, there were 2 resource requests, and then the third one was a situation report about opening a shelter, right? That was the third one.
Yeah,
The first 2, you got replies. I sent replies
okay.
that said, you got to tell me where, when, who, how, right?
Okay, I did get something from my net control person who handed me that message,
Okay,
and he said, I don't understand this.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was doing about 4 other things, and that kind of got set.
yeah, so the way, and then the net ended, and so we didn't get
Yeah.
to play that out. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But in a real world event, if we'd used a 213 RR, which is just a checklist, I'd have known that it was 4 radio operators going to, you know, the Highlands or the Hardee EOC or wherever, I forget where it was. I think it was Highlands.
There were 2 Highlands and.
And who to report to and all, and the reply would have come back, because there's always a reply box on those forms. The
Yes.
reply would have come back, ETA and how many.
Okay, I've got his message in here. I'll look at that and see.
Yeah, yeah. And I have it in my package. I didn't bring it today. But yeah, no, that's good stuff. So from the state EOC level, which was the role I was playing, that was the one piece of that I think we all need to understand. And Chuck's been talking about type and kind for a year in these meetings. So that was a good example.
And by the way, just as a point, I requested 4 because you and I had talked about the scenario, well, you told me to tell my group about the scenario of getting riders. That tied up 3 of my 4 people.
Yeah,
And there was a possibility that we might have to open a shelter. I had to have a shelter operator with a relief person.
Yeah.
For that person, and possibly relief for the ride arounds. That's why I said 4 people. Because I knew and so I could not, at that point, I couldn't be specific. Joe Blow is going to be assigned to do this. Joe Blow, there's 3 or 4 things he could have been assigned to.
there's I wish I had, the bigger package that we're going to talk about with some of our served agencies is going to have, there's a wonderful page out of Oxcom training, chapter I can't remember, but it's about doing resource requests, and it's just a 1-pager, and it says very simply, plan for more than you need. Common logistics thing. If you need a case of water, order 2, right? If you need a radio operator, order 4.
Yeah, and one of the things I said, Hardee had requested 1.
Yeah.
Which they either had to do through us because we didn't understand that initially.
Yeah.
Then I also made a comment in my interaction stuff that I'm doing for my group. We need to consider the possibility that I've got 4 people, I only need 3. I need to talk to state about reassigning that person to Hardee because they need somebody.
Yeah.
So
but that's your flexibility, Randy. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, that's your
Yeah.
discretion. But the thing about the resource requests, understand that once we have the operational briefing and we start to execute the workflow for the day, that's it, right? So if you request resources, it needs to be for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Unless it's an emergency, you're not gonna get somebody today because they're busy doing other stuff.
At some point, I want to talk about time too,
Yeah,
time frame in all of this.
yeah, and time in it and exercises gets compressed. It's really hard.
Yeah,
Larry.
that's why I want to talk about it. We need to do something about it.
As an active part of the planning process, and it's something that we never practice, it's called demobilization.
Yeah.
From day one,
Right.
the incident commander and his staff should be planning on shutting the incident down.
Right,
And how do you do that in an orderly and timely manner?
right.
You just don't go across the command channel and say, okay, everybody go home.
Yeah. Have a nice day.
You've got to shut. And the other thing I want to pass on that we've learned in the past, a lot of times you're going to be asked as a ham to deploy your radio to a non-radio installed vehicle. It might be a dump truck from your roads and streets department, whatever.
Yep.
Well, you always said, well, I can do anything with mag mount. Well, guess what? A lot of vehicles now are aluminum. And guess what happens to a mag mounted aluminum?
And electric cars don't have.
And it doesn't work. So the simple thing is you steal a real estate sign that's sheet metal and you tape it on and that's where you put your mag on.
Yeah.
But during one of the incidences like Charlie or something like that, we were tasked out of Hillsborough to man and staff of the Salvation Army heating kitchen. And they were all aluminum step fans. And we couldn't get hardly any combo out of there because where the hell you stick the damn mag now? And so I wanted to point that out.
That's a good point.
And the other thing about resources, having been involved in lots of real life things, resources is the most screwed up thing in any incident.
Yeah.
You'll either get none what you asked for or twice what you asked for. Okay, so somebody needs to be actively tracking resource requests, like Randy's 4 ham operators. Did he ever get it? Somebody ought to communicate with them periodically and say, Randy, did you get your 4 operators? Because what happens is, if you're up at the state EOC, you're going to get inundated with requests.
Yeah.
And how you handle it and how you verify it. I mean, the age-old thing about cots.
Yeah.
You're reading my mind, Larry.
I am fascinated with the fact that we keep coming up with the same things. You mentioned the problem of getting in a vehicle like that. That's exactly the question my 3 right about people ask.
Yeah.
How do I install my radio in this vehicle?
Right.
Their concern was in our go kits, we also have a handheld.
And a lot of vehicles don't have cigarette lighters anymore.
So
Yeah, we don't tolerate
there's a lot of areas that these guys probably would have been into that would not have been able to got back in from the handheld.
It
So
isn't the
now we-
handheld that's the problem, it's the
Right.
rubber ducky antenna.
But it's also the fact that even with a mag mounted handheld, isn't going to get in a repeater or something. So
Well,
we've got to look at our go kits and do some
We've got
thoughts.
4 ARES repeaters that we need to get out in the field and get maps that say in this area, you can't get this repeater, but you can get this one. We've never done that. We need to do
No,
that.
we've-
So in
we've got
Manatee and
some of them.
Sarasota, we've actually divided the counties up into zones. So when you check in with a availability, you're checking in, you just give them a zone number, right? And those zones are defined as, that's a handheld to handheld communications range. That's an incident area, right? But when you check in as a zone, you don't have to tell me that you're at the corner of walk and don't walk, right? I just need to know what zone you're in. That way I know I can make an assignment. If you need, I already know that you need a relay station, right? Or whatever it might be. So we've done that. That has shown up over and over again on our after action piece of the past. Absolutely. Those are good points. Demobilization is a huge point. I actually
We've
have.
never ever practiced it. Nobody practices it.
So I talked about this logistics subnet. Our AEC of logistics knows that he's the person that needs, when mutual assistance teams come in, resources come in, he's got to brief them on the incident action plan, give them a safety briefing, and tell them what their demobilization plan is, right? And that's the one that usually is missing, because we're volunteers, right? If you show up and you go, okay, I'm here, they sent me, How long am I gonna be here? I want to tell my wife. Well, you gotta know.
There's actually a question at 5 o'clock. When do you start the mobilization?
Day one.
When you, it's the.
When you make the
When
resource.
you order the resource.
Yeah, yeah.
When you order the
Exactly.
resource.
I'm gonna add that in, Larry. Thank you. That's the kind of thing that we need to talk about.
Ours was kind of simple. We basically told our people if you check in and then when you're finished, you check out and then you check out when you're back at your home. Yeah, and we actually did this through a Coast Guard Auxiliary District conference one time. We played it with using all the ICS information.
Sure.
So when you got to the hotel, you checked in.
Mhm.
And then when you did your thing, and when you left the hotel, you checked in. And when you got home, whether it was 4 hours later, your flight to wherever,
Right.
you sent an email or a text back to a certain point that you arrived safely.
Right.
That's how we did it.
And our EOC manager was emphatic with me the first time she talked to me about 214. First entry on 214 is I left my home at such and such a time.
Right. And the last entry
on
is
it
I
I'm back home.
Yeah,
at such and
exactly.
such a time.
Exactly.
She really stressed that with me and my group gets.
And I get a lot of pushback on the 214s because people say, well, it's not really a radio. No, it's not. It's an activity log. Actually, what I tell them is it's a time card, because understand that in a declared emergency, your counties get reimbursed for hours, for contributions in kind. It's a time card, and Chief Lischauer, he's drooling. He went, but we're still dealing with, in Manatee County, we're still dealing with Hurricane Andrew. Remember how long ago that was? Right. The paperwork is so bad, we still haven't gotten reimbursed for that. So the 214s are required in order to get reimbursed for those funds.
A volunteer hour used to be worth $30. That's what FEMA used to.
It's 3/4 of what the labor rate is right now. Right.
It used to be worth at least $30.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's probably more than that.
And you're looking at a day, a work day is 10 hours. You're looking at $300 a day.
And plus, remember, your insurance company is going to be asking. So you got that paperwork says, hey, look, I was authorized, whether it's Good Sam Act or whatever it is, right? I was authorized. Here's my number. Right. So I'm covered.
We have it set up with our people from the Cattle Association, fired up one of those trucks with a big gooseneck trailer that hauls some loose cattle over to the Arcadia where they're going to be held up over there. It's not a $15 run. It costs some money out of somebody's pocket. We may be asked to do that quite a bit. So we've got it set up with the county. We can charge it from the Cattlemen's Association FEMA rate. So we do 214s, we document, we charge FEMA rate for our volunteers' expenses plus hours. Put that in, but that truck trailer, everything else, we have the FEMA books. We know we can get reimbursement for those. We do reimbursement for that, then the Cattle Association reimburses their member.
Right.
But that way we've got that nonprofit that's funneling into the basically.
And I stress with my group, why does the EOC keep telling us they want us? Because they're getting paid for us. And if they don't put us in a shelter where they don't pay us, they get the money for volunteer hours. But they have to put a county person there on salary.
Right. Yeah. So when I talked about capabilities, the number 2 capability that our emergency management chief asked me to provide is volunteer labor for that reason. And I'm looking around because in the EOC in Manatee County, every room at the door has a box that says, put your 214 here. Paid employees, when they come in, they start. When they leave, that 214 goes in that box, right? Paid employees, not just volunteers. So everybody does it.
Yeah.
We did that in our Oxcom training, but in February, in Orlando, we had to do.
I heard that. Yeah, I heard they put that in Oxcom this year. Yeah. Gary was in Oxcom this year.
Yeah, I was with him.
Christine.
That's right, you were there. Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah.
So I have one takeaway, and Chuck already stole my tagline because I like to quote people from all this feedback I get, and I got this great quote from Chuck said the best value is in the preparation and planning, and he already said that earlier. But, it's the planning and then watching this stuff all play out, which really for me was a big learning experience. And it also can be humbling. And, but you know what you're gonna do differently the next time. So that's the value of doing it. So.
The other thing you need to remember is the age-old Semper Gumby. A plan is just an outline on how you're going to start to do things. Be flexible enough to respond to the situation. You cannot write an emergency plan, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4.
So that's a good lead into Randy's point, because in planning, the dates are always on a rubber band and it slides, right? So you want to bring up the timing issue?
I'm wondering if we can't come up with something where we have like a timekeeper who periodically says, the time in the exercise is now 10 hours later than it was at this, so that we can say to ourselves as we're going,
yeah,
okay, I've covered 10 hours, I need a relief operator in this shelter or whatever.
That's in professional umpire school, they would call that a higher level mechanic. So I was in an exercise yesterday in the Manatee County EOC, and we had professional trainers in, and they broke it up. They said, okay, the hurricane's hitting right now. And then the next exercise was, it's 72 hours later, we're in recovery phase.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
That kind of thing. We're not there yet. We're still, I would say we're still crawling before we walk.
Yeah.
We're walking before we run.
Well, and we need to crawl.
And Chuck did that intentionally because he wanted this chaos. He wanted to demonstrate, I forget what you called it, but I call it chaos. And then everything gets quiet.
Complexity.
Yeah, it's just
Organized
complexity.
Complexity that
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
can
organized
follow,
chaos.
because that's the real thing.
Now, day 3, we would probably do that. We would probably say, we're going to do this piece of the scenario.
Yeah. And
then we'd be fighting fire.
you noted the point about you're doing your thing over here and you don't know what they're doing over here. One of my people raised that with me, and he kept arguing with me. How can we do resources if we don't know what Manatee is doing?
Right.
And my answer to him was, you have an assignment, you do your assignment.
That's a hard thing for people to get their heads around.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Yeah. And oh, here's another one that came out. I don't know how to word this, but let's see if anybody else heard it. So we had these multiple nets going. We had divisions and we had a command net, and there's chain of command, right? And everybody wants to adhere to chain of command. Cecil struggled with this. Cecil said, I got a need. Do I have to communicate up through Sanford to get back down to another? I said, no, communication happens horizontally, right? Commands are chain of command, but the communications is meant to be this way, right? We're very much a matrix, for those of you that are into matrix management kind of philosophies and things. So it's important that we can communicate across the IC. That's not up and down.
I tell you another thing I was told by Ben Henley when I worked for them. I'm trying to remember the hurricane. I don't remember which one, but Hardee called us on the phone and said, we're opening a shelter. We don't have anybody to. So can you do something? Ben's reply was, you are getting someone from us. And he asked me who. I had a person I could send. Ben turned and looked at me and he said, when there's an emergency, you take care of it and you apologize later.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And we all need to remember that. Sometimes we get hung up on, it's got to be done this way.
Yeah, right.
Hardee needed a person in that shelter now.
Right.
They couldn't wait to go to the state, get a request back. Who can fill that?
Ask forgiveness, don't ask.
I had somebody I knew would get in his car and drive over, and I told him, I said, you're not going to be covered by the insurance thing because this isn't official. He said, I'll go anyway.
Yeah.
And win. Yeah. We need to do that sometimes.
I'm finished.
Okay.
At least that's all I had, but I'm loving the conversation, so please carry on.
Good guys.
I actually have one ignorant question in this whole thing.
Only one?
Yes, only one. Say that DeSoto actually had that tornado. Do we have a list of who we go to? Okay, maybe we need somebody from Manatee. Do we have a generic list a call sheet, if you will? Do we need to get one?
So I'll answer that on Ben's behalf. The answer is maybe. So we have the ARES database, which was intended to be that capabilities list, right? And it's still being maintained, and I still use it. However, you can't say that this person's available until you know day of whether or not they're available, because their roof might have been blown off. Remember, we're all volunteers, family.
No, I guess
personal family.
my question, Steve, is there maybe the EC from each county, you call that person to,
That's the way it was originally
And
designed.
that's the way this went,
That's exactly what we did here.
right, because they went to your call down.
We went to Aurora.
Well, no, before that, just to tell everybody,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
you went to basically a reverse 911 system that you use. like
Yeah, we use Everbridge.
Everbridge.
Yeah, you were on it.
Yeah, so they do the Everbridge, everybody knows there's a call up. Well, it was one of the things that I designed on here because it was in the back of my mind. I remember this for seeing it actually happen. Here's your roster, and here's how many actually showed up.
Yeah.
Okay, so they put out the Everbridge. Now, this is how many people really showed up, because you can only deal with reality that day, not how many when you got on a roster that you think they're gonna show up. It's reality. And that's what showed here. And you saw that it was up and down in all areas. Hillsborough County had 2 other events going on that day. So were there people logged in? No, they weren't.
Yeah, so I
That could've been
didn't
fun.
show the slide. We had 31, sent out 31 Everbridge notices. I actually got 17 acknowledgements from the system. So only 55% of our people acknowledged getting the. And then we had 20 check-ins or 12.
Everbridge is wonderful, because I sent out to every single person on the ARES database in all 10 counties. And I don't have the total number, but I didn't get any replies from that. But when you send out on Everbridge, you have to acknowledge you got it.
Yeah.
So you know how many people got it. And then from those, you can, in your mind, who's capable of doing what.
And
You can ask them.
to Mike's point, only people that are eligible to be activated get Everbridge notices. I've got more members than that, so I do an email as well. But
Well, Everbridge can also be broken down into specific groups.
They can.
now Everbridge costs money, so your sponsoring agent has to be gracious enough to pay for that. They do.
The EOC sponsors our Everbridge. The
go ahead,
database,
Jimmy.
Yeah, Homeland Security does.
Yeah,
not.
I think we just answered my question that I've been sitting here thinking about through all of this, as in this so low level ARES. I apologize for even asking, but Ed is just an ARES member. I've taken the classes, I've signed up. Okay. If something happens and there's some type of emergency, how am I gonna know that I'm needed somewhere? Am I gonna get a phone call, text message, email? How am I gonna know?
It's
First
different for
place.
different counties.
Each county.
yeah.
In Polk County, how am I gonna?
I will
Please, the
send
other
you-
thing you gotta realize, people are working for a living.
Yeah.
There is a slim chance in hell that somebody in downtown Tampa his boss is gonna let him off to go respond to a trailer tornado down in DeSoto.
Certainly not
You
gonna.
gotta
get cops to
understand,
fire.
even though you have these assets,
Where it
us old
becomes,
part retirees are only so much, and we can't handle the load. You've got working people, and they can't get off.
where we use it, and I'm an old coastie, and I've been in the auxiliary like 36 years. I've held about every position you can think of, but we use Everbridge extensively for all different kinds of things. Now, my flotilla is still in Keys. So if we start getting a storm coming in, they'll put us up on a watch. And then at a certain point, they will send out a message to the entire division, which is, for me, it's Division 13. And that division, everyone has a certain time period. You either respond by text message or an email message or a phone call. If you don't respond within the first initial time, then your flotilla commander or somebody is going to make a phone call. And then if you don't respond within a certain time, somebody's knocking on your door. And that all has to go back into Sector T West. And we have to have 100% accountability where our people are at, whether they're going to be called in to work or whatever. We just want to know where you're at. So either you're in the county and you could be in trouble because of the storm, or you're safe and you're out of state for the summer or something like that. So it can be used that way too, as a mass notification that something is coming, So you know where your people at. I've told Randy before, tell our guys, if you're leaving for a couple of months, like one of our fellows just went up north to Ohio for a couple of months, he stays in touch. He lets Randy know when he left, when he's coming back. And so that's kind of one thing we kind of push. If I'm gonna go on vacation here in a little while, I'm gonna tell him I'm gonna be gone. But my electronic lease follows me and he knows how to get a hold of me, so.
Yes, Chuck.
And just go back to something that Larry was talking about there, was on these particular assignments for the word resources, and I dial it in there for this was an hours of operation. You had to order 2 for 1. There was none of those, and they were 4-hour operations, but they were beyond what anyone could have done as a one shift.
Yeah.
Kind of a deal. So
Now,
that kind of figure all that in as well.
to answer your question, in Polk County, I would send it out on the Polk County data, ARES database. If you have signed into it, there's a place that puts all your credentials. If you've got your 1, 2, 7, and 8 done, you would check those off. So that means you are deployable. So if there's an emergency, I would send that out and you can answer me. You can respond to me that way. And I'll also send out on Everbridge. And I know everybody on Everbridge, and I know the percentage that's gonna come back and answer
So
me.
and say, you're gonna send it out. Am I gonna get an email?
Email.
Okay, that's
All
all I
right,
need to know.
it may be email, it may be text, or it could be both.
But one way or another, you're gonna contact me and I'm gonna get it.
You're gonna get either an email or on text, and Everbridge is a text.
That,
So
perfect.
you'll get
That's-
it. You'll get
I've
one
never
of
heard of
those.
Everbridge before. We use a Signal app for communication between our.
Everbridge is a paid program,
Right.
Okay.
and it actually records, it sends out, and then it records replies.
Did the
You have
state
to-
finally adopt Everbridge?
Yes, yeah, it's universal across the state.
Because whenever I was retiring, they were all the lawsuit part of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Cobra, there was that other company.
Yeah.
So I would also say, for Jimmy's sake, and for everybody's sake, I stole shamelessly from the comms plans in Hillsborough County and Falmouth. Thank you very much. There's always a line, because your internet might be down. You're not gonna get it in mail, right? There's always a line that says, if you suspect something is going on, go to this repeater. Our resource net is always called on K4GG because we're developing that muscle memory and habit. We will always have somebody on that frequency if you suspect there's an emergency.
so I would be, the skies turn black, things are going bad, and something's going on, I would listen to the ARES system.
Then we would come up.
Of course, here in Hardee County, it's easy. It's Daryl and me.
So you have a basic calling tree. You have a basic calling tree.
If he's still on there, see if Sanford's still on there, see if he's got any closing words of wisdom for us.
Oh, yeah, well, I wanted
We
to
also
make
get
it,
a chance to.
let me, Daryl, can you stop screen sharing?
Okay, hang on just a second.
All right. 'cause
You're
it's
not screen sharing now. You look fine.
Yes.
I'm
Does
seeing
it-
your video. No problem.
I'm gonna make sure there's no other function going on.
Good luck.
No, I'm serious. I mean,
You're not screen sharing.
hey, you wanna do it? I'm
Okay, I
saying,
just have a blank
hey,
screen
we're
here.
for this Saturday.
No, you're fine. Keep going. We're seeing you.
Okay, I can't see you, but you can see us. Okay, I had 2 things I wanted to say. First of all, I just went to a web EOC training program at Polk EOC. And the reason was so that everybody could get into web EOC. I don't know if all of your counties are into that, but it's what we use. It communicates with, tells us how many is in our hospitals, how many beds are available, how many are taken, how many shelters are open, how many are in each shelter, how many slots are available in each shelter. It's got all of this information, comes right up online. When, so that you are in the EOC, it's like a time clock. Minute you get there, you clock into it, and then you start using the different boards and you log everything you do on it. And the reason they did it before hurricane season is because they don't want to do it when there's a real emergency.
We used it very much.
So did you?
Mhm.
It's a very good system. If your county's not using it, see if you can use it. And I have a whole packet of papers on how it goes and how to use it. I wish I had known you were going to be here. I would have brought you something. And what else was I going to say? Oh, we are also, we will follow the appropriate ways to get things through FEMA and through the state, certain stuff. But I talked to Paul Womble, who's the Polk County AOC, or the Polk County Emergency Manager. And he's been a lot of places, and he said, I never did any of that stuff. They just called me because they knew what he could do. And they wanted him to go somewhere and do something. And we just, they just sent him there. They sent him not only within the state, within the section, but outside the state to do stuff. So sometimes having a good name gets you into a lot of places, especially when they know you're very capable. So, Sanford, are you there? Do you have any remarks you'd like to make?
I guess so.
Daryl, is Sanford there?
I'm here, Christine. I just had to unmute my mic.
Oh, okay.
No, one of the things that I take away from this whole thing is.
Here he is. Let's turn up the volume.
Can you hear me?
No. All right, I'm going to get FHP. This is his computer. See if he can get you a little louder.
Give her a whirl.
Is that any better, Mike?
That's the best it's gonna get.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, I'll speak up a little bit. One of the things I take away with this is, and I've been involved in this for a while now, is it's kind of good to see all the counties in the section working together. That's something we haven't done in the past. And we talked about it, but we've never actually done it. And it's really heartwarming to see that it can be done and see that everybody can play on the same field without having a, well, we want to do it this way or we want to do it that way type of situation. There's a way to do it, and I think we're approaching that realm. So that's just my only thoughts on it. And as a net control person, it's you see kind of what everybody is doing and what their reaction is. And I want to thank everybody that was involved in it. Everybody was calm, cool, and collected. Nobody panicked, and they overcame some of the unpredicted injects into it, and it worked out well, I thought. So that's about all I have. So I'll send it back to you, Christine.
Thank you. And for those of you who haven't seen it, this is out of the latest QST. This is on page 69, and it's a recap of the ARRL National Convention. And it mentions us in here and talks about us. And it has a couple of paragraphs discussing the importance of CERT. And I think this had to do with both Gary Bishop and some of his work and also mine. It says, as part of ARRL ARES Forum, what is ARES, how to join open forum? Dewey presented on the West Central Florida Section CERT program, specifically the Polk County Fire Rescue Sport CERT. The CERT program educates volunteers about disaster preparedness for the hazards that may impact their area, trains them in basic disaster response skills such as fire safety, search and rescue, team organization, and disaster medical operations. Dewey also spoke of the importance of relationships between clubs and counties within sections, quoting, "We often miss the variety of skills a division or section has to offer and operate as isolated entities," she said. Building sections into teams create mutual support and allows each ARES member to contribute vital skills that will benefit the whole during emergencies. And that's the end of quote. Their next ARRL simulated emergency test will focus on all counties working together in a declared disaster for the benefit of one or more counties experiencing disastrous communication. So that was a pretty neat wrap up. So anyway, if you didn't see it, take a look at it. And this is really all of you doing, all of you working together. I know Mike had the vision to get us working together, and Chuck did a lot of the work of putting it together and actually setting up the program for us to get together and work. And I was very happy. I was kind of, the program ended before the supporting counties up to the north really got involved in it. So we never had a chance to do a lot. We did learn some things, and I will send Steve, there you are. I will send you what we decided, what we learned. and some of the problems that we experienced in the Hope Pasco group.
Absolutely.
Division.
Please,
So anyway, and Randy,
I want to note something, and I'm not trying to step on toes or whatever. I had a feeling at points in this exercise that I was being told what to do as opposed to being asked what to do.
Hmm.
Now, I may be wrong in that, okay? I recognize that. My understanding of how things function is I'm to be asked, can you? We did that at one point. Chuck, I believe it was you who did the paper on the request on the ride along. Were you the one
Yes,
that-
yes.
Okay, and at the bottom of that, he had a statement. At such and such a time, you will tell Command Net that you either accept or do not accept this request.
Yes.
That ought to be done. And at points, it was not. We need to recognize there's differences between counties, what we can, cannot do. You're talking about CERT. I talked with my emergency manager about CERT. It is not going to happen in Highlands County. They will not happen, period. Because of some bad things in the past. Red Cross, very active in Sarasota and other places. Red Cross is a dead issue in Highlands County. It's a dead issue. There's no office there. When they come in, they have done things like go in shelters and solicit funds in a shelter. And they are not welcome there if they're doing that kind of thing. In other words, my point is, I work in a different situation than you do in Sarasota or Manatee. My leadership needs to recognize that and come to me and not say you are going to do, but you do. It's a minor little point in some ways, but it's a significant point in other ways. And I wanted to raise the issue and just let you know that's the way I'm feeling about some of this. Chuck, I really appreciated getting that thing on the Riger thing when you put it, that little thing at the bottom. That's exactly what should have been done in all of this. You are able to, you are not able to, whatever, accept this responsibility.
okay,
Among other things, that also says to leadership, okay, I know Highlands County would be willing to do this, but they're not able to.
That's the big thing. As an operations chief, what I demanded out of my division chiefs was, I'm gonna give you some orders for what I need for you to do. These are the orders. You gotta tell me if you're capable of being able to do it. If you can't, you need more resources, or you just can't do it, or I missed something in a local policy or a state policy or a federal policy. Tell me about it.
Yeah,
Don't just go, yes, sir, and move on and take both of us off the cliff.
and
I'm not gonna appreciate that.
I talked with Chuck about this when I first started getting in contact with him and jumped on Chuck about that. And Chuck came back and said, all I did was the planning, what I was asked to do. And Chuck and I thereafter worked out some things together, negotiating out things and saying, we can, we can't. That's
okay.
the way I was trained in ARES. And,
Well, if I did something that upset you, I'm certainly sorry. Was
And-
it
and
planned?
I'm not
I
trying
thought
to
it
get-
was taken care
I'm
of.
not trying to get into personalities or
No,
whatever,
that's
I'm
okay.
just saying.
No, it's an
And a lot of this
operational
comes
point.
back again to
I'd like to see it
recognize
on your
Yeah.
concerns list, and maybe it is, I just don't.
It is, it's a very important
In
thing.
the feedback you sent me, is it on there?
It is not, because at that point, to be frank about it, I wanted to avoid stepping on toes. I've got an entire one-page document in here dealing with that. I will get it to leadership.
Send me a note of some sort. I'd like to portray that as a concern at the higher level.
I will send you a copy of that along with Christine and Mike and.
Well, this also gives us an idea of what the right hand can do and the left hand can do. In the past, nobody knew what the right hand, left hand was doing.
Yeah.
Sure.
So if we all know what each other's capabilities are to a certain point, it'll make it a lot easier, because now you can pick up the phone and say, okay, I need this. Okay, I gotta go over here instead of over here.
Right.
And I would note, I've been EC in Highlands County since 2005, maybe the oldest EC in here. This is the first time in that whole span of time that all 10 counties have participated together in an activity like this.
Well, amen. That sounds great to
And
me.
my commendations to the leadership for doing that, for Chuck, who set up a marvelous thing. And I started realizing as we did it, Chuck is deliberately doing more than what we are.
Well, he's evil, Randy. He's absolutely evil.
And I my wife just kept on saying, keep your nice hat on, keep your nice hat on.
Yeah. I hope we will do this on a more regular basis.
Oh, we will.
Uh,
In fact, that's what I was thinking. When do we think we want to do the next one?
What I really-
2025.
what I really like to see happen, and this was built into the drill part of it, is that it rolled into a 2, because we weren't done with business the first day. And then if you look back, and I had told some of y'all, if you want to know what I'm up to, go back and read the after action of 1. Read that, read it over again. Between the lines, it tells you everything I'm going to do.
Yeah.
What we need to do now is to switch gears, because the first one in 1 was so important to us, because we needed to do something with our agricultural teams in the heartland. And so this gave us a platform to be able to do it. It gave us a tour bus to be able to go to the park. We now need to go to Tampa Bay. We need to go to Tampa Bay area and look at something in there and go beyond, oh, we've lost all communications, you're replacing that, because there's new communication systems that are robust enough that they're going to survive a lot of this. But what you don't have is volunteer activity, coordination, documentation, and support. That is what it was designed in the first one. Was as SARS, we don't have any repeaters. We own a few radios, but we don't have any repeaters. And we don't have the expertise to be able to take us across county lines, regionally, we don't have any of that stuff. We depend on ARES to be able to do that. So we're a customer. We came to you as a customer. This one, I'd like to see that expanded and to look at it into some of the more populated counties and go and switch it and go the opposite direction and go to something that's more into, rather than starting out originally as animals. We went to animals and people, now switch that all up into just people and put something into that. But that there's volunteers that have got to step up, and there's volunteers that got to be coordinated and supported. And the only way you can do it is with a good radio system. The cell phones, it just doesn't get it. I was in it for a lot of years, and there's no place that we would fly into and get there and go, hey, have you got the cell phones here in White Sulphur Springs, Montana?
Right.
What's a cell phone?
Yeah, what's a cell phone? Yeah. They had a sheriff's department with the sheriff and his 3 deputies for a county the size of Manatee. There wasn't great cell phone service there. And that's not how you run an operation effectively. If you want it to be splintered and chaotic and everybody just out there doing their own thing in different directions, that's it. Take away the party line. And so we built our own communication systems. We had everything was if somebody got there from California or from Maine, the radios were the same. So we need to go in that direction.
I'd like to maybe branch off that a little bit, Chuck. By design, ICS and incident command is at the local jurisdiction. In the state of Florida, that's county, right? It's always the county. Are all of us chartered by our county emergency management? I will tell you, not all counties in West Central Florida are. That's why I'm asking. But if you have any relationship at all with your county emergency manager, please ask him for his THRA. That's the Threat Hazard Impact Risk Assessment.
Say that again.
THRA, Threat Hazard Impact Risk Assessment. They do it every year. It's a 5-year kind of a look. It's very insightful. I'll just share with you my personal anecdote. When I took the job 2 years ago, I went in and met with Chief Lischauer, who's wonderful. And he said, these are our top risks. These are our major risks or hazards, however you want to classify. I didn't know that the entire state of Florida received fuel through the Port of Manatee. The Port of Manatee is extremely important to the state of Florida and our government. Okay. I didn't give a damn about Port of Manatee, right? Coast Guard can handle their own business, right? No, it's a big deal. I didn't know why nobody lived around the Tropicana orange juice processing plant in Bradenton. It's because they're the #1 producer of methane gas in the United States, and it's a huge, huge terrorist threat. Okay, I don't want to live around. I don't want to live around either. Our EOC right across the road. McDill Air Force Base is an easy one, right? The nuclear power plant up on Crystal River, all of those things. But you'll be surprised what the real risks are. Pandemic fell about number 17 on the list this year, compared to the things that they're really worried about. So,
Look what goes up and down our highways on these tank trucks.
I'm sorry?
Look what goes up and down these highways on our tank trucks.
Some of them hazmat is a huge impact, you're right.
There's stuff we don't even know about.
I think
Right.
Cook County has a 500-page document on risk assessment and mitigation strategies.
And the other thing that I thought was really, really good is that they do a public survey every year. And then they go through the actual rigor of assessing, you know, anybody that's ever done risk management knows how you go through that rigor and then you assign values to it. What our public's perception of threats and hazards are, and maybe us coming in, you know, as the untrained versus what's real and what's important. You need to start thinking your comms plans around those kinds of things. And agricultural response is a huge one in management. So thanks for bringing that to the party, because they need to know that. People need to know how to deal with that.
I guess here in Hardee County, it would be the love bugs right now.
Oh, I was gonna say the Arcadia meat market. I'm sorry, the Arcadia livestock market is the #1 economic engine in the state of Florida, besides exporting dead bodies out of Tampa. So that, I'm sorry, I lost the whole point of why I brought that up.
Well, when the old market, and Doug, you were there whenever the old market got blown down in Arcadia, during Charlie.
Okay.
And what was the economic impact of that regionally?
Well, God, they haul cattle into that thing all across this section of Florida.
Yes.
Right.
People don't realize that Florida is one of the largest
Meat producers.
in the country.
They're like
I did some
second or third.
some numbers on it during Charlie, after they lost the market and it closed down because we couldn't sell. It's $3 million a week.
Chump change.
3 million a week. But where is that 3 million filtering into? Not big economic centers where people have got 2 or 3, it's places where they're so dependent on that money, where if you look at their gross money that's coming into that community that's being spent there, and it affects then all of those other down the line programs, because you can't pay for anything else if you're not getting those cattle.
Well, and look at the news today. If you don't have meat, you don't have food supplies. It affects all the beach communities have to shut down. Same thing. That's why they're so acute to red tide on the beach counties because of the economic impact. Not only does it shut down the beaches, but there's no fishing, there's no fish for the restaurants, all that stuff. It's got a huge expanding impact. So,
Yeah, during
so
high
think
and
about
dry
it.
too, I had someone working with me at the OC. I had Jim. He was UDE. I don't know who he is now. He just got his new call sign. But anyway, he just looked at me and he said, never realized there was so much work with cattle and livestock. He said, should we incorporate that in Polk County? And I thought, we might be able to think about it because there are a lot of cattle that come out of Polk also.
Yeah.
So when's the barbecue? Shouldn't they give us a
Yeah.
barbecue for throwing this on?
Y'all just making me hungry.
I told Chuck we were gonna round up one of those stray cows.
Well, that's straight cattle.
Oh my God, he got hit on the road.
Just go back to the policy and steak.
Okay, moving right along. When's the next week? Let's go.
Oh, yes, next meeting is in July, right?
And who wants to host it this time? Let's just do it that way. Who would like to host it?
Coastal. we
The
should
Hard
have
Rock
Coastal.
Cafe in Tampa.
I would.
Yeah.
Oh, I would go to that.
Contact, see
If we can.
if Highlands is a possibility, but I need to consult with her first.
Okay, normally we would go to a coastal.
I know
center
you
in
would.
that,
I'm just,
But,
I'm offering.
okay,
Weather permitting.
yeah, what about you guys down south?
We're still off limits. I can get in there except by appointment.
How does Charlotte do it?
I don't know.
Oh, okay,
I'm Manatee, so.
you're Manatee, you're Charlotte.
One of the things I noticed in my,
I'm Minnesota.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
oh,
Well, Charlotte used to be part of this.
All right, to be determined.
Well, we want to go, so. We want to go with Highlands? No, you're a maybe. All right, we're gonna have to throw it out, maybe
Okay.
Highlands. You're coming to you? Oh, you want to go to?
Coming to you.
Oh, I can always host it at Post. It's never a problem. I have the key to get in.
well, we've got good access, but it's not that good.
We just have to get Tosh to make sure that there's nothing going on right now, because they're doing a lot of in-service training and stuff for their county personnel and stuff.
Well, talking about a county-wide disaster, we are doing when is that in Polk County, the plane crash? Is it gonna be out near Lakeland Linder? Are we doing a simulated plane crash?
That should have already been done right before thunderstorm. That's part of the black fence requirement, so that should have been done.
There's another one coming up.
There may be
somewhere.
another one to certify the airfield.
Okay. All right, that would just involve us. Anything else, any last minute, anything from the Zoom community? No?
I got.
Sebring Diner sounds good for the meeting, dinner before the meeting.
Sebring Diner, oh, I love Sebring Diner. They
Sebring
got
Diner
great
is good.
potatoes.
Liver and onion.
Go ahead.
Okay, now, because my group, we had our radio club meeting last Monday night, and we brought up the fact that the digital radio was in use and people were discussing it and stuff. Nobody in my group knows anything about digital radios, including me. And we're wondering if there's anybody who would be willing to come to one of our club meetings and explain to us.
I know a
digital
guy.
radio.
What
Yeah.
kind of radio is it?
Any digital radio.
I'll be glad to do that.
Yeah.
We have very little interest over
I know,
Yeah,
well, I'm just, because I went to the public safety part
Well, you
of
are
digital
there
radio.
with two people, this guy and this guy, two mics, that are both very interested in it and DMR and know lots about it. And so
Well, what
whoever.
was the radio that we used as part of the test?
Anytime, it
See,
was
what is that? I have no idea.
DMR,
If you
it
want
was
me to come down, I
anytime.
can explain all the formats so everybody can understand really what.
But see, all the formats, and there's the problem. You got more than one format, so which
Oh,
one
yeah.
do you go with? So we got the using repeaters, nobody uses them.
Oh.
To answer that question in a real short fashion, you hear that all the time in ham radio, but how many people in here with my 4G fit? Anybody driving a Chevrolet here? It's no different than any other aspect of commerce. There are different things in different parts of commerce. Just because there are different formats doesn't mean they're not effective and they can't be utilized.
But in public safety, they finally adopted P25 to give everybody a format, so it doesn't matter who the public safety system.
With an asterisk.
Right.
ARES P25 doesn't necessarily like Motorola people.
Or cable.
Right, so.
So as a professional communications engineer, I'm gonna ask the question, why do we care about digital voice? Not MXDN. MXDN has data capability, okay? But DMR, P25, System Fusion, D-Star, why do we care? The answer is we shouldn't, because they're not interoperable. That's what you're trying to say.
That's correct.
And why does P25 exist in public safety? It's not because it provides better service or better coverage. It's so you can put more users in less channels. So everything goes TDMA, it goes digital, so you can compress it. It doesn't help the comms link. Don't think that your range is better on your DMR radio than on your analog FM, because it isn't. Okay, that's a professional 40-year system engineer from Motorola and Raytheon telling you that, right? So when you talk about digital radio, yeah, it's fun, it's great, it's a wonderful part of ham radio. But for emergency communications,
Keep it
what's its
simple.
purpose? What is the purpose of it? NXDN send data. Right. I understand that one is unique, and it was good to have it in the drill. We don't have any NXDN in Manatee either. Right. So my resource request was going to be to Pinellas to send us something, but we didn't get that far. Does that make sense?
It makes
Well,
sense.
the other thing is the cost involved for somebody to get a radio and to learn it and all the different things like
And
that.
then that system goes away.
And for us in the ag group, if you look at the footprint of NXDN, it's perfect for us. So that's where it was, their system footprint is perfect for us to be able, if you took that and put it into our situation, if we had a tiny point.
Yeah.
It would have eliminated that because and not everybody in SARG is gonna have one of those. It's for command and general staff to have library communications so that then they can go in and have tactical communications wherever they go.
Yeah.
So if you think we're going over to digital, it's go away.
So there's a difference between data. Here's that semantics again. There's a difference between what the ham community calls digital and what communications engineers call data, as opposed to voice, right? Don't confuse digital voice with data. It is. But Chuck, to your point, at some point that infrastructure becomes vulnerable.
Oh, yeah.
Right, just like our repeaters are vulnerable. So you always have to have that. You always have to have that fundamental wall.
So who would be interested in coming down to our meeting next month? Who lives close? I live in Lake Forest.
I think we ought to fall back to the original digital communications known as CW.
Oh, binary.
Binary.
Binary, on and off.
So we don't discriminate.
I'll send you I'll send you an email.
We just changed. It didn't even dawn on me.
Oh, bad. All right, I guess we are done.
Well, Randy's always.
Anyone who didn't get on here, please get on here.
Thank you all so much for coming. This was a great meeting.